Hey, welcome to the 2020 Business Leaders Breakfast. Today, I'm lucky enough to have Dr. Belinda Mawhinney, founder of the collective Grenville. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Belinda, what is the collective and where did you get the name from?
Okay, so the collective is a co-working and event space located in the main street of Grenfell. So we have a few different spaces available here for people who are looking for a short-term or a longer-term work solution. We have an open plan work area, we have a boardroom, which is what we're sitting in now, and we have a meeting room, and we have a few private offices, and then we ended up converting an old warehouse that has a really large back area, so we have an event space out the back, which is just really a versatile space for people to deliver events whatever they look like.
That's amazing. So if I come down from Sydney and I just need a space for a day in Grenville, you're the person to call?
That's us. That's what we're here for. The collective as a name, so I'm the co-founder with my partner Anthony. We use the same process to name our son as we did to name the collective. I wrote down 4 choices on a post-it, and we debated the pros and cons, and ultimately I decided that's good.
I have that with my kids, so I understand entirely that sort of process.
But as I'm sure you can kind of appreciate, the collective is around using a term that is inclusive and is not defined specifically as being anything other than a place for people to gather for the purpose of the work.
And so in the future, things could change there depending on what the need is out in the region. I like that.
Yeah.
So basically, the establishment of the collective seems to have elevated the town of Grenville. What was your inspiration and what are your plans for this great space going forward?
Oh, my inspiration was a couple of things. I think the idea first came about, I tuned into a Business Chicks webinar, and Gillian Kilby, who started up the Exchange in Dubbo, was speaking with a couple of other women, and she was talking. I think they had already launched at that stage. And I've had a few conversations. I've been co-working for a number of years. So since I came back to Grenville in 2016, we didn't have internet on our farm, and I was writing my doctoral thesis. And so out of necessity, I was using different spaces in town. So I was working at a photography studio, I was working out of another office, and I realised that there was a group of mostly women who in lots of ways had quite an invisible way of working. So you would see them come to town, you would cross paths with them at the coffee shop, or you'd see them at the pool, or you'd see them at the supermarket. And I didn't really have a good understanding of where they went in the day or what they did. And it was just really interesting to discover that some of these women were practicing law from home. They were town planners. They were doing all sorts of really great things. And I just remember thinking and saying to Anthony, we need a place for people to come and work, for people who don't want to work at home. This is about creating an alternative space for them. So that's kind of really where the inspiration came from. And in terms of what the plans are for this space going forward, we're still really in the startup phase. So we only opened our doors in May, and I am somebody who loves a challenge, but I also know I need to create some space to let it grow and to not move on to the next shiny object. So I think this is just really a phase where we're creating a space for people to come and use it in different ways.
And basically giving it time to see what happens and how it evolves. I've actually been to the Exchange and also the startup hub in Bathurst there. So each one's quite unique and different in what it offers and the people that go there.
Absolutely. And I think, I absolutely have to mention Prue, who has Hive in Orange. I think working out of Hive a couple of times and just like smudging the windows when we were picking things to put in here, saying, oh yes, we could really do something like that. And not that it looks aesthetically anything like it, but I think what I really love about what Prue did was she took interior design and smashed it against this co-working idea and really elevate. I mean, there's just, if anyone hasn't seen it, I'd really strongly encourage you to look at their socials or go and have a look in Orange. I really loved how she had created this high-end, beautiful decor, and it really challenged my own thinking around what a workspace needed to look like. So I think the combination really came from those two existing workspaces who I think are doing it really well. They're doing it very differently, but they're both doing it exceptionally well in regional New South Wales.
And I think it's picking the best of each one and seeing what sort of works for the community.
Absolutely.
So basically, you're a founder of the collective, but also you are a Churchill Fellow, passionate social worker with a PhD. Tell us about your career journey and what led you to establishing the collective.
Okay. So my career journey started in Grenfell, in that I lived here I think we moved here from the far north coast when I was about 7. The older I get, the more we dispute the year that we moved here. I'm not really quite sure, but that seems to have come up as some point of debate recently. So I went to school here locally, which was really great. I had some really amazing teachers. And I cottoned onto the idea of being a social worker when I was about 11. And so that was a really clear career path for me. I left in a hurry, like a lot of people, as soon as I could, went away to university, studied in Sydney, worked in Manchester in England, where I took up my first sort of designated child protection role. And that's really where it all grew from. And I feel really lucky that I have found an area of practice that I really love and I feel really committed to, which is why I did my thesis. Because I really felt like I wanted to make a significant contribution to the discussion around how we work with families when we have concerns and we're not statutory child protection workers, not to get too technical, but, trying to give some voice around the practices of nurses. Although I'm a social worker, I felt really committed to acknowledging the significant contribution that nurses make to families when they've got small children. And so that's kind of really the context of my thesis.
How long did it take you to write?
The whole process took 5 years, and I took 6 months off when I had my son. I mean, I took it off. I was like breastfeeding and reading other people's doctoral theses. As you do, but that's okay. So I sort of officially took off time, but didn't really.
So I've looked at your branding and I absolutely love it. And your website and logo, right through to how your Instagram looks. Is this something you've learned from a workshop, or you self-taught in a lot of these areas?
I am a firm believer in outsourcing. Anyone who knows me will attest to this. So I worked with Emma Barrett, who is a graphic designer in Dubbo. She's just recently rebranded and I think it's called Emanate Designs now. Her design aesthetic is absolutely beautiful. So all of our colours, our logos, that's all Emma. I just pitched the one. I mean, she just gave me a few concepts and I was like, I really love that one.
You didn't do a mood board or anything?
I did do a mood board because that's part of her process. But it's really, I just think that there is some fabulous graphic designers out there, and it's really important to me, and it's a value that I hold, to support other people in small business. And I think, I'm sure I could have come up with something, but is it the best use of my time? I don't think so. And when people have studied for a really long time to perfect their craft. So really, I think Emma played just really gave us the framework that's made everything come together. Because I agree and I contribute to it, but I do think it is a really beautiful aesthetic, and that's constantly what we hear. We also worked with an interior designer on some of the colour choices in here.
Yeah.
Lil Wilson of Lil Wilson Designs, and I've also done a workshop really recently on social media marketing with the Social Purge marketing business. So that's a local woman, Zan. She's actually running a workshop here as part of Small Business Month on Saturday the 19th, 18th or 19th of March. You can get your tickets soon. And I think I sort of just took the elements. So obviously we have the logo and all of the colours and everything looking really beautiful. Yeah. But Zan really has given me a 12-month framework to implement a social media strategy that's cohesive and really speaks to the brand. So it's a combination, that the common thing is outsourcing.
No, I think that's great. To be quite honest, picking a design is a very personal thing. And I always tell people, have a look around, shop, and make sure you've got that good experience with them. And from you're gushing, you're sort of going, these are great, they've got me. I think that's really important. So that's probably a good tip there for a lot of our viewers out there. Look around and choose local. There are some great local designers, artists out there. Support the community, because at the end of the time, the community's got to support you.
And I think the other thing, we certainly did start a design process with a company, and it just wasn't the right fit. I just wasn't really feeling that they were getting it. And I do think we are very blessed to have so many creative people in regional New South Wales. There is no shortage of finding the right fit for you, but there's certainly lots of solutions in regional New South Wales.
No, that's great. Talking about the sort of trend and what's happening in regional New South Wales, we've talked about a couple of other co-working spaces. Why do you think they're becoming so popular? It was a sexy word 3-4 years ago, but they didn't really take off. And now, I think the last couple of years, they're really starting to take off.
I think it really depends on what purpose they serve in the community. So I think, as I was saying before, the couple that I know of reasonably well, I think they each function in a really different way. I think that the uptake has absolutely been accelerated in the last 2 years with people who weren't in a position to work from home. I think that kind of gave some kind of energy around this idea, and also having everybody at home. I think really shifted the dynamic for a couple of people I know in our community, where you kind of realised maybe working from home wasn't the convenient solution that you always felt that it was. And for me personally, it stopped being convenient. So it was convenient up until a point for me to have a base at home, but I can't meet clients at home. I can't facilitate workshops at home. I can't host International Women's Day events from my home. So it kind of, I think people are really maybe seeing the opportunity for all of the elements that you miss when you either work for yourself or you work from home. So you have a chance for social connection, you have a chance to meet other business owners, you also have a space that you can be really proud to say to your clients. I know when I say to a client that we can work from here, that we can meet here, there is just something really, I don't know, like it's just a real shift. And I think for some people to work from a place that has a really polished professional edge, like there's something to be really proud of that, to say, you know, come and meet me at the Collective. I think that's really cool. But I also think that there is just small businesses who don't want to take the risk and don't want to have the commitment of overheads. Like having a co-working space just really takes all of that pressure off. And if you're running on a pretty lean budget, then co-working spaces can be a really great solution.
And I know some people are working at co-working spaces and their office is in Sydney and they go down once a month. And I think that's great that you get to live in a community, in a region that you really like. And Yeah, I don't miss the travel to and from on the train to Sydney. So
No, me either.
yeah, so that was a big one. What I'm going to ask you is what I call the fast five there. So yeah, no right or wrong answer. It's a little bit about you and the region there. So can you talk about 3 dream dinner guests that you'd actually have come into your place?
Sure. I think number 1 would have to be Brene Brown. So Brene Brown is a social worker.
Okay.
She made social work cool.
Okay.
She has she is a doctor of philosophy in the States. She's done a lot of research around shame, and she's received a lot of attention in the leadership space in the last couple of years. So I feel like an opportunity to have dinner with Brene Brown would be a real blow your hair back moment for me. I think another person who I really feel very inspired by is Hetty McKinnon. So Hetty is, I actually think she's maybe a cook rather than a chef, technically, but she has a series of really cool cookbooks, and I love them and I'm obsessed with them. One's called Community, one's called Neighbourhood, one's called Family, and she used to have a small business in Surrey Hills. She used to make salads, and she'd ride around Surrey Hills delivering them to businesses, and now she lives in Brooklyn in the States, and she continues to release these cookbooks, and she's really cool. I love her style of cooking. And Grace Brennan, who's heading up Live from the Bush.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness, that woman, I would love to have dinner with her.
She's a dynamite.
Yeah, so they would be my 3, for sure.
And I was going to ask, what would you have on the menu? But the sheer fact that you've got a cook there, I would outsource there once again.
Well, I'd probably have to take some inspiration from one of her cookbooks, but I think anything by Eat Your Greens, which is a catering company out of Ugara, they are
absolutely
second to none. So anything by Jess and Ben, I wouldn't even ask them to make anything in particular. I would just say, lots of beautiful food. Thank you.
No, that's great. So, you might have already answered this question. Best cafe or restaurant in the region?
That is tough because I love cafes.
Yeah. You can always name a couple.
Okay, good, because I will. I love Pickles Collective in Forbes. It used to be called Lakeside, but they've relocated and had a name change, and that is just like, for me, I love it. And the other place that I really love but don't get to very often is called, I think it's called the General Store, the Marsden General Store in Borwa. That is really gorgeous, really, really gorgeous. I highly recommend both of those places.
And what makes them so special?
Coffee.
Good coffee.
Really, really good coffee.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll let you finish your sentence.
Yeah.
Really good coffee, beautiful, warm staff.
Yeah.
And I feel like anything that kind of takes you to a different place. And I feel like sometimes when you see what they offer, they have interesting things on the menu that you don't find in other places, or they have just a certain way of delivering their product that you just kind of go, oh, this is a good day.
I feel special.
Yeah, like they really give you that feeling, which is great.
No, that's great about that sort of customer service.
Yeah.
Okay, so in your opinion, what's any hidden gems in the Central West? So it could be a place, a person, or an event.
The Cordial Factory. Have you heard about the Cordial Factory? Okay, so the Cordial Factory, for those of you who don't know, is a live music venue in the original main street of Grenville, George Street. And that is an old cordial factory that's been renovated very recently, and it's about to open its doors to host a series of live music. And I think this is the best, worst kept secret in regional Australia.
Don't tell everyone. You won't have room. It's one of those sort of things.
I know, but it's a project that's come to life through a lot of blood, sweat and tears by the owners, and I just think it's a real credit to them to have persevered. And And so I would just love for people to know about it and to spread the word. And I think, you know, I know for me personally, this is supposed to be fast, isn't it?
That's okay.
What I just wanted to say was, I think for me, I loved going to live music in Sydney or in Manchester, and was always a really big fan. But I think I reached a certain point where, you know, maybe my lifestyle has changed, and I don't necessarily feel like if I'm going to leave my family on a Saturday night, I kind of really need to feel it's got to be a really purposeful experience. Otherwise, I'm really just happy just hanging out. But I think to have an opportunity to go and see live music, like that's going to get me out of my house on a Saturday night.
Yeah, and I think that's good because that will really help the vibe for Grenville.
Absolutely.
So, and that's the big sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, favourite holiday destination in Australia, or one on your bucket list that you haven't done yet?
Oh, my favourite holiday destination is a small town called Grenville, which is just north of Coffs Harbour, and that's originally where I'm from. Okay. So that became our family holiday destination a couple of years ago with our son. It's a really long way away, but it just has everything we need from a holiday.
That's feeling of place there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's just, it feels familiar because I spent a bit of my life there, but it's different enough that you can walk down the street and not know anyone. Yeah. It's just kind of cool.
Yeah, which is sort of great. So here's a later question. What's your favourite event of the collective so far?
Oh, that's harsh.
I might let you choose a couple where you don't upset everyone.
Okay, my favourite event. So we've had only a few events because obviously last year sort of put things on hold a little bit. We had a really lovely garden workshop a couple of weeks ago, which was just a really, I really love that. I have so much to learn about gardening. Yeah. We had a couple of small business owners come and present on their subject matter expertise. We had a woman come all the way from Hay who has started a garden from dirt, literally dirt. She's called the Outback Gardener. She's an amazing cat.
Yeah.
And it was just a really beautiful opportunity to deliver some education around a personal interest. Yeah. And we had people that travelled distances that I couldn't have dreamt of. If I sat there and designed, where would I hope people would come from? But people came from within a 3-hour radius of Grenville. And it was, everyone left feeling really inspired and nurtured. And it was really, I think that's probably one of my favourites. And then last night we had International Women's Day Eve, which was fabulous.
And who did you have on that?
The format for that event was really interesting. So we had a dinner that was catered by Eat Your Greens, and the format was, we had Jane Kay, who's the CEO and founder of Bird's Nest, which a lot of people have heard of, but in case you haven't, you need to go and look it up because it's a pretty impressive regionally based business.
If my wife's watching, you're still banned from that place there. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a sensitive subject in some people's houses. That's okay. So Jane, who is a beautiful, warm-hearted, amazing woman. So she was interviewed by Sky Manson of Company Podcast fame. Sky is an ex-ABC journalist and is a podcast producer who's based out of Gunning. So there was a recording of her, an episode for her podcast in front of a live audience. So that was really lovely.
That's quite cool. Yeah. It's quite different. That's amazing. So really, in this business, what were the challenges and key learnings that you sort of learned for setting up?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me, and I think the biggest challenge that I often see in communities, is the mindset that you have going into the project. So I think probably my hardest days in here, when I was physically busting out stages and painting, I was okay to do those things. They were very, very hard. Yeah. But when somebody stopped to make a negative comment, that was just the stuff that I found. I found really. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I found it unkind. I don't think that that's what their intention was, but I just think people need to exercise a bit more responsibility around the comments that they make around other people's businesses and choices. That was really hard to hear. But I think it was a really great opportunity to be clear from the outset that our mindset that we have about our business is up to us. It's not up to anyone else. And so I think that just really consolidated that for me really early on. And I often say to other business owners in our community that rising tides lift all boats. And that's something that in our home, we really believe in that. So if there's anything we can ever do to support and encourage people to rise above the challenges that come with being in small business. I mean, they're incredibly difficult for lots and lots of reasons. But I think the mindset is something that we can all influence. And I think having a positive, supportive culture is really key to growing a community.
And the community is not one person, it's multiple people. So if you can all work together, you can really make something special. Okay, so mentoring can play an important role in someone's personal and professional journey. What one piece of advice have you received and which has stayed with you your entire time?
I think that probably came from my really early years as a social worker. So I kind of think back to working in some pretty disadvantaged areas in Manchester and going out with a really experienced social worker where you sort of had to knock on somebody's door and have a really difficult conversation. And I just learned through experience and seeing somebody else doing it that the best way to have a difficult conversation is be kind, be clear, and be really honest with somebody. And I think that bit of advice that I got from her has always held me in good stead. And it's something that I always encourage wherever I can, that where people are feeling a certain way about something, the ability to have a conversation that might be difficult, it's so critical to be able to resolve a lot of situations.
And also treat people how you'd like to be treated.
For sure.
And that's the hard sort of thing. So what's your prediction for the next 12 to 18 months across the Central West? What excites you?
Look, I think every small town is really making a statement in some way, shape or form. And I think, I've only lived back out here for 6 years. And there's a lot of noise, and rightfully so, coming from Orange, which is like a really cool destination. And Bathurst has got its sort of cool elements, and so is Dubbo, and so is Walker. But I think there are all of these tiny towns, some smaller than others, that are really having a presence. And I think that we will continue to see that. We'll continue to hear about have you heard about that live music venue in a cordial factory in Grenville? Have you heard about that amazing nursery in Canaldra? Or have you heard about, I just think that these small ideas that have been bubbling away probably in people's minds for a really long time, I think people are ready
to make it happen.
And I think it's a really great time for people to be doing that.
And I think really what a lot of the small villages and towns offer is unique experiences that you can't get. You can't get that in Orange. So we don't have Henry Lawson. We've stolen Banjo Patterson. But really, those events, and they're quite unique. And even just walking down the main street, there's new sort of shops there. There's those green shoots, which really excite me. Personally.
Absolutely.
So we have a hashtag that we use quite regularly, Central West is Best. Tell us why Grenville is such a great place to live, and why do you want the world to know about Grenville?
I think what makes Grenville really special is maybe a little bit hidden below the surface. There is a movement of extremely positive people who really want what's best for the community. And they're not necessarily the people you hear the most from, but I just feel like there is this kind of undercurrent, really positive, supportive people. They're just not necessarily, they don't necessarily have the loudest voice.
The most vocal, Okay, so thank you for today. How can viewers and listeners to this morning conversation learn more about yourself and the collective?
Well, you can check us out on Facebook or Instagram as the Collective Grenville. We also have a website called the Collective Grenville as well. That's probably the main places you can find us.
Well, thank you, Belinda, for your time. It's great. So that's another one done for the the business. I always get this wrong. Business Leaders Breakfast Forum. So thank you, and look forward to catching up with you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much.